And we go to colors. And here, I'm gonna, if you are an artist or a designer, I'm not gonna tell you anything that you don't already know. But what the same thing is for pixel art as well. Always use less saturated colors. Very important. It If you saturate colors, you might think, okay, this is gonna pop, maybe this is gonna make the game look nicer, brighter, and so on. That's true, but to a point, because you don't want to strain the player's eyes. You don't want to create this type of eye burn. So if you look at these two examples, in one these colors are white saturated. When you look at them from a zoomed out perspective, you can see that that saturation actually makes it harder to understand what we are seeing because the colors almost clash with each other. While this, you can straight away see that this more subtle changes would give us, oh, okay, this is kind of an appendage, this is in the dark, this is bright here, that means that this one curves here, and so on. Another important thing, again, taken from conventional art, is for one object, choose complementing colors, not clashing colors. Of course, I'm opening some brackets here and saying if your whole art style is put in the direction of completely crashing and screaming colors, go for it. But normally, we want the colors to be more complementing. Again, we can see here with the appendage, if we make something like this for the shadowy parts and non-shadowy parts, the whole thing, again, it's very complicated to understand what we're seeing. Well, this one is much more complementary, much easier to understand. Okay, we had some light here, we have some shadow here. Another important thing when you start, even if you have some color palettes, in some programs you have some color palettes. In other programs you might not have that color palette straight away, but you need to create for each character and each asset a color ramp, something like this. All the colors that would be featured in that character. These colors need to be coordinated with the overall colors of the game, and we're going to show this when we start drawing stuff. And then you just need to stick to what you have chosen. And of course, a very straightforward thing. If you have a character, you should not make him blend with the background. If you have foreground that the character should jump on, you should not blend it with the background. And of course, if everything is complete background and you want to make it more consistent, then of course you can blend it. And to understand how easier to figure out how to make things pop out or how to make things blend nicer, one thing that makes me understand this is the HSV color space. So each of the programs that we taught in the previous video had the possibility to choose the HSV. And when we start drawing, I'm also going to show you how you can use that. But the HSV color space stands for hue, saturation, and value. The hue is more or less the color. The value is how close the color is to becoming black or to becoming more pure white. And the saturation is again how much the color is saturated, how bright it is or how washed out it is, to put it in easier terms. And when we change the hue, we change the color. If we have decided, let's say we want some blue, then we change the value. If you change the value to a darker one, then you can make stuff like different types of shading. For example, if something is in the shadow, if something is more in the background. If we change the saturation, we can actually very easily visualize stuff like if something is in the sun, something is brightly lit, or something, for example, is in the fog, or if you want to again show something that's in the distance. By changing the saturation and the value, we can create more or less all the parts from the perspective that we require. And some practical examples. We have here kunai. It's a very nice jump and run. We can see here that how the game plays with a very limited color scheme, but we have a lot of grays, but changing how saturated the gray is and how close to white or black it is, we can visualize a lot of details. So we can see here, for example, in the clouds, we have brighter parts of the clouds that most probably the light hits, darker parts that are more in the shadow. We have our main character that very much pops out because it's the only thing that has blue in the scene. We have the bad guys that also pop out because they are the only thing that has red in the scene. We have the small touches, for example, that show what the thing is made out of. For, let's say, this tank, we can straight away see because of this very small light highlight, we can straight away deduce that this is made out of metal. The same with this car. Then we can see that the character, this part here is clawed because it doesn't have any highlights, and so on. And we can go even further with this. This is a platformer that's called Squirm. This one has even less colors to work with. It only has a number of grays and white. We straight away see that both the character and a bad guy pop out from the background because they're the only thing that are pure white. Everything else is different hues of gray, as we can see here, and straight away we can understand which part is at the top, which part is at the bottom. We can straight away understand that this here are spikes because of these small highlights. And finally, if we go with another game here, they completely go all in. This is a Game Boy type of color space. Again, we use only black and white, but because of the more subtle touches here, we can see that we can put a lot of detail, a lot of small things we can understand. For example, here, because of the way that the ground is built, we can understand, okay, this is dirt, while this one is bricks. Our character has a suit with more metal parts and so on. So you can use, with small subtle touches, you can explain a lot of stuff. Even here on the little bricks, you can see that we can straight away, the eye understands that there is a light coming from here because these parts are in the dark.